Penguin Random House Canada presents A Hymn to Life, Shame Has to Change Sides by Gisèle Pelicot, translated by Natasha Lehrer and Ruth Diver, read for you by Emma Thompson. 1. I always set the table for breakfast the night before. I put out coffee cups, plates, cutlery, napkins, pots of honey and jam, almost as a way of reaching across the hours of darkness that I fear, of proclaiming the harmony of the day to come. Then all there is to do in the morning is get out the butter, put on the kettle and wait for the smell of coffee and toast to fill the air. All will be well. That evening, as usual, I got everything ready, even Dominique's clothes. Let's call him Dominique. I never used to call him that. I preferred affectionate nicknames, Dumais, Minot, but afterwards I didn't know what to call him anymore. I called him Monsieur Pelicot. Now that it is time to tell our story, I have decided to use his first name. I put out a pair of bottle green corduroy trousers and a pink Lacoste polo shirt the children had given him. We had to be at the police station the following morning. The appointment was at 9:30. After we woke up, we drank our coffee and listened to the news on RTL. The global COVID pandemic had picked up with a vengeance and another lockdown was in force. I looked up at the sky through the kitchen window facing me. It was going to be a lovely day, so I suggested a long walk after lunch as a way of defying the government's restrictions and as an antidote to the morning's summons. Dominique sat opposite me and said nothing. I reminded him it was November the 2nd. My brother, Michel, would have been 69 today. He sighed and said he didn't like November. It was never a good month, no doubt, an allusion to all the bills and notices of unpaid invoices that were about to come in. My ghosts and our money problems hung there between us in the kitchen for a moment, but we had always lived with them, and in a way they had brought us closer. Dominique went to take a shower while I cleared the table. As we were about to leave, he pulled on a jacket that did not go at all with the outfit I had put together for him. I told him so, and he shrugged. We took my car. He drove us to the Carpentras police station. 2 months earlier, I had been staying with our daughter, Caroline, and her husband Pierre outside Paris, looking after my grandson until school started, and we had gone to spend the weekend at their holiday home on the Ile de Ré off the Atlantic coast of France. That's where I was when Dominique called me, sounding unusually agitated. He stammered something about having lost his mobile. He needed a code to activate the new one he had just bought to replace it. He'd had it sent to my number. I gave him the code, but everything about this usually methodical and organised man seemed suddenly in disarray. When he came to pick me up at the station a few days later, he looked gaunt. We got home, and he burst into tears. He said he couldn't bear to lose me. I thought immediately of my father's grief when my mother died. Dominique sat beside me, shaking with sobs, and I was unable to console him. I feared he might be ill, that his cancer might have returned to take him away for good. When Dominique finally confessed to me that the previous week he had done something foolish at the Carpentras branch of the Leclerc supermarket, he'd been caught by a security guard filming under 3 women's skirts, ended up at the police station and had his phone and computer seized. I was upset, but I was also, in a way, almost relieved. It was terrible to think of my husband stalking these women, unbearable to imagine him as an offender, but it could have been so much worse. This was not irreversible. My fears were measured on a different scale. Only death really frightened me. So I told him that we would keep the incident between us. I wouldn't tell the children so as not to hurt them. And I wasn't about to give up on him, but he absolutely had to apologise to the women he had filmed and see a therapist. There wouldn't be a next time, because if there was, I would leave. I promise you, he said, it won't happen again. I would never be able to forget what he had done. It was a warning sign, but a warning of what? I had no idea. I just wanted our life to go back to normal. Life resumed in our little yellow house with blue shutters. The backdrop to our life in retirement in the south of France. The pool cover was on, the oleanders had finished blooming, autumn was drawing near. In mid-October, I had gone up to Paris, this time to look after the children of my son David, who was due to undergo minor surgery. I was always going back and forth whenever I was needed to look after one or another set of grandchildren. The school holiday schedule became my own. I rushed up to Paris any time there was a problem, too. I was Maminou, the travelling grandma. I wasn't afraid of getting old. I knew it was a privilege. Obviously, when I was at David's, I spent most of the time with my granddaughters. Every morning, Charlize stubbornly refused to wear anything but a tracksuit. Clémence, her twin sister, was always changing outfits and had a penchant for princess dresses. They were 9 years old, the age I was when I lost my mother. I didn't hear the phone ring that morning. I was sitting at the tennis courts. Clémence and I were watching Charlize as she ran after the ball. Her forehand had improved. I saw I'd missed a call, unknown number. I called back a little later. Bonjour, were you trying to reach me? The man introduced himself. This is Deputy Sergeant Perret from the Carpentras police. Are you aware that we interviewed your husband a few weeks ago? Do you have any idea what this is about? Yes, I said. My husband had told me everything. My answer resounded inside me like a quiet victory. Transparency and trust were at the heart of our long marriage, and, I added, I had lived with this man for 50 years, and he had never yet let me down. When will you be back? On October the 21st, I can come and see you straight away? No, we have too much work to do. Come with your husband on November 2nd. And so November 2nd arrived. Dominique had no reason to sob like Papa had when Maman died. Don't worry, it's only a formality, I said to Dominique as we arrived at the police station. A low, unassuming modern building, yellow like our house, the colour of Provence. We walked in, each masked up with one of those pale blue rectangles that now covered every mouth on the planet. We had just reported to the reception desk when a man with a crew cut leaned over the balustrade on the first floor of the police station. It was Deputy Sergeant Perret. I'll see Monsieur Pelicot first, then Madame afterwards, he called down. Dominique walked up the staircase in his ill-matching jacket without looking back. A short while later, the police officer reappeared and motioned for me to follow him. I went briskly up the stairs, assuming that I would find Dominique in Perret's office. He wasn't there. The police officer indicated the chair opposite him, far enough away from his desk that I could take off my mask. I immediately apologised profusely for what my husband had done. The man across from me was tall and solidly built, with a strong face above his wide shoulders. He seemed to embody authority, and yet there was something gentle and cautious in the way he talked to me. He asked me to confirm my identity and the date and place of my birth, December the 7th, 1952, in Villingen in Germany. Maiden name, Guillou. Parents' names Yves Guillou and Jeanne Pro. He asked me how Dominique and I first met, and I told him it was at my mother's sister's house in July 1971. It was, I added, a genuine case of love at first sight. He wanted to know how I would describe my husband's character. He's kind, attentive, he's a lovely guy, that's why we're still together. He asked if we liked to entertain. I replied that we often had friends over. He asked me to describe a typical evening. I said we didn't really have a routine, we weren't that old yet. He asked me what time I went to bed, whether it was at the same time as my husband, whether I took a nap in the afternoon. I was a little taken aback by his questions. Are you into swinging? I didn't understand anymore. I heard myself replying, no, never. How ghastly. I heard myself spluttering that swinging was not something I would ever consider. That I couldn't imagine anyone else touching me, that for me there needs to be love with sex. He asked me if I thought I knew my husband well, and whether I trusted that he would never hide anything from me. I said yes. I am going to show you some photographs and videos that you are not going to like. I sensed something rising in his voice, not only embarrassment, but a curious mix of
Sample complete. Ready to continue?